Hey there, welcome into Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. That's the Hall of Famer Vic Carucci. I'm Jonathan Acosta filling in for John Scott tonight. Week 16 of the NFL season brings the Bills' shortest road trip of the year. Vic, just a few hours away over to Cleveland. We'll have ESPN Cleveland's Tony Grossi in the next segment to dive deep into this Bills-Brown matchup. And Josh Allen later on, think that the Bills might be peaking at this point of this season. We're going to give our thoughts on that as well. But Vic, sort of this game sandwiched between a big game against the Patriots, a big game against the Eagles next week, but they got to focus on the trip to Cleveland this week.
Yeah, they should. And this should, I'm going to say it, and probably it's almost blasphemy at this point to say the Bills might actually play a game that comes out to be an easy win, and not one that requires a lot of ebb and flow and roller coaster ride and all the emotional stuff that I've been hearing, and I'm sure you've been hearing from fans wherever they see you. They tell, this team's killing me. Like how do you survive these games? But this doesn't feel, Jonathan. I know I was going to do that.
It's okay.
This shouldn't be one of those games.
Yeah, Bills Mafia, I'm sure, would like a calm Sunday where they're not chewing on their fingernails in the fourth quarter. Absolutely. Before we dive deep into this week's matchup, let's take a look at today's Bills injury report. It's a long one. Linebacker Terrell Bernard and wide receiver Mecole Hardman upgraded to full. Christian Benford missed that game against the Patriots. Practicing a second straight day, he's limited. No Deion Dawkins, no Dalton Kincaid once again. Daquan Jones, Taron Johnson downgraded to limited, and we have 3 new additions to this report as well. Vic, I'm sure the Bills would have liked to see this list maybe condense a little bit instead of growing.
It's amazing. I mean, it's not unusual to have long injury lists this deep into the season. But once again, it's those new ads that get you. When you see the punter, for instance, right knee injury, Mitch Wisnowski. I mean, okay, punters can get hurt, kickers can get hurt. There's allegedly the lowest on the list of positions where you're going to get injuries. But you see these new names jump on there, and now it's both the kicker and the punter. Limited, that concerns me. I don't know necessarily that this opponent is going to require the Bills to have the concerns about punting the football too much. I think their drives are going to finish with a lot of end zone PAT kicks from Badgley.
Michael Badgley filling in for the injury at kicker as well, right? Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's a few names that pop out on this injury list, though. Benford and Bernard, 2 guys that have been practicing the past 2 days. What do you think is the potential impact for this Bills defense if they are able to get those pieces back? And on offense, we're talking about 2 key pieces that have now missed 2 straight days of practice in Deion Dawkins and Dalton Kincaid.
Well, those 2 worry me. I mean, not so much for this game in particular, because we know how much the tight ends have become a more integral part of this offense, that Joe Brady's worked them in. But if you take Dawkins out of it, you got a guy named Myles Garrett. I know we're going to talk more about him, but that could be a compromised situation with Garrett taking over the game. Possibly that's about the only avenue to victory I can see for the Browns. But in terms of looking at the injury list with Bernard in particular, you saw the game Milano had, and if you can get Bernard back in there, especially his ability as a pass coverage linebacker, as an active moving linebacker, and as a guy who he's somewhat the traffic cop out there, right? The communication with him is exceptional, and I think that's something. I'm not saying they've missed, well, you can't say they didn't miss it. They missed something in the first half, especially against the Patriots, but maybe that stuff's tightened down more if he's out there.
You feel like if Bernard is back, that linebacker room is a real strength for this Bills defense now, considering the play of Matt Milano last week and really what Shaq Thompson has showed them all of this year as well. Now, turning our attention to the Browns, Vic, I think there's one obvious place we have to start, and you just touched on it. Despite the team's record, the Browns have one of, if not the best all-around player in football in Myles Garrett, who's on the verge of something truly historic this season, Vic.
It's amazing. 1 sack away from that single season record, and I've covered this league long enough to see that change some hands since they recorded sacks. It wasn't always a recorded statistic going way, way back. But he's he is a force and a force of nature. He can take over a game. He's capable of it. Now, you've seen him get 5 sacks in like against New England, and they still lose. The Browns lose the game because everything around Myles Garrett is a problem. Is a dumpster fire for the most part, and there have been a lot of injuries. Again, we'll pursue those angles as well as we let this show unfold. But this guy, a beast. It's power, it's speed, it's instincts. Bruce Smith worked with him quite a bit. And you get the tutelage of one of the all-time great pass rushers in the history of the game, and you apply that stuff to go along with your great skill, it matters.
You mentioned Bruce Smith as one of the all-time greats. Where does Myles Garrett rank for you among that list? Where is he sort of on his trajectory towards being not just in the Hall of Fame, because I think we all expect him to end up there, but truly among the best of all time at his position? He's
on that short list already. I mean, Bruce is on there, obviously. You can go down and look at some of the Reggie White and think of some of the all-time greats. Michael Strahan, what he did, and I know the Brett Favre falling down to give him that record was a very sore spot for Mark Gastineau, who had previously had that, and he was upset with Brett Favre for doing that. But I would say Myles Garrett, is it a short list of 3? Is it a short list of 5? Could he be right at the very top? Because keep in mind, Bruce Smith did what he did on a team that was going to Super Bowls. Myles Garrett's team, just like typical of the Browns, they've had Joe Thomas, one of the all-time Hall of Fame tackle, and I was working for the Browns when he was there, and my gosh, to succeed the way he did, despite all the wreckage around him, was something, and I think it's the same thing with Myles Garrett.
Garrett's the headliner. Let's take a quick look at the rest of this Browns defense. A defense that is 3rd in the NFL, actually, in yards allowed per game. Obviously, hasn't been good enough to help this Browns team have a winning record, but they still have some pieces on this defense, most notably that rookie linebacker Carson Schlesinger, who's the leader right now for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah,
and look, this is Jim Schwartz's defense. You give him kudos, the defensive coordinator for the Browns. Of course, he was here in Buffalo leading the defense here, and his credentials are sterling. He was a head coach years ago with the Detroit Lions, but his forte is that of a defensive coordinator and knows how to maximize the pieces he has. This team is number 1 against the pass in the NFL collectively. Again, teams have success running against them, so that could be a little bit of a skewed number. But I think it matters to see this production. Yes, the talent has to be there, but I really think Jim Schwartz's coaching has a lot to do with it.
Injuries have impacted this defense. The loss of Malik Collins on the D-line and Denzel Ward, one of their best corners, missed that game against the Bears, out the past 2 practices as well, so that's certainly something to keep an eye on. Offensively, we think that the Browns' pathway to winning involves the rookie running back Quinshon Judkins, who's been one of the most impressive rookies offensively in the NFL so far this season. He leads all rookie running backs with over 800 yards this season.
Yeah, again, you got to hand it to this team for having some of these individual standouts, but collective failure as a club. And I'm sure that's got to be just giving Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, nightmares, because you've got this talent that can do special things, and yet it's not resulting in the wins they want.
Something to know, in the last 2 Browns wins, Judkins has played a big part with 5 touchdowns in those 2 wins. So really that shows you when the Browns have success, it's because Quinshon Judkins in that run game is having success for this team. Now, another rookie in the backfield with him, probably the most popular one, Shedeur Sanders, getting ready to make his 5th NFL start for this Browns team. And what a fascinating story. He gets drafted after a fellow rookie in Dylan Gabriel. Yet he's the one now getting these opportunities down the stretch.
Getting those opportunities. I call him more of a curiosity than a stupendous talent, because he isn't. The numbers aren't there. He can throw the long ball, I think, exceptionally well. I think there's physical skill there. I think it's been such an awkward intro to the NFL for him, however, the way this all went. Maybe, I don't know, people will point to the fact that he was drafted so low, the 5th round, and the expectation by the draftniks was that he'd go much higher. So there was a built-in sense or prejudice, I think, against the Browns for handling this. You've really got like a second-round guy, but you got him in the 5th round. Well, that's where they drafted him, the 5th round, and that's what he was to them, and I know that's how he was evaluated by a lot of teams. Has he had the cleanest pathway to the starting lineup? No, and that could be affecting how things are going for him. I'd love to see how he would produce as a guy who had the full offseason, the full camp as the number 1 quarterback.
And a rough outing for him last week against the Chicago Bears. A blowout loss. He gets sacked 5 times. You wonder if this could be a game where Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa and Joey Bosa end up being able to feast a little bit and boost those sack numbers again.
Their O-line,
not just because of the play standards, but you're going to say the injuries on that offensive line.
Injuries on the line, lack of continuity, everything that you see that is helping the Bills have effectiveness in the run game and protection of Josh Allen. The Browns don't have it. They've had I think the number's 9 turnovers of players, 9 combinations of O-line. That's bad. That's a problem, and in most cases that's going to result in disaster.
And we have to get quickly to the pass catchers that Sanders has. The Browns don't have the best group in the NFL, but they do have a really nice rookie. We talk about rookie at running back, at linebacker, at quarterback. They have a nice rookie at tight end in Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah, he's getting some things done, and look, there are small ways, short list of ways you could see this team being competitive, whether it's against the Bills or any team. And this would be one of them, because the teams do have, and we've seen it with the Bills, tight ends can be effective players. Now, again, the Bills, knowing this, I think can do a pretty good job of probably limiting him or taking him away, but it's the combination of him. It's a combination of Judkins, catching the football. After Fannin, though, kind of like the Bills, after the tight ends, there isn't much else in the receiving core that does a lot of damage.
Isaiah Bond, another rookie on this Browns offense, he's shown some ability to sort of, with his speed, get down the field. Sanders targeting him a few times against the Chicago Bears. Really only the semblance of spark in this Browns offense last week in that loss against Chicago. You wonder what he might be able to do against this Bills pass defense, especially if Sanders is somehow able to get some time to throw the ball down the field. But it really feels like he's going to have to rely on sort of the short to intermediate game with Fannin Jr.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it for our thoughts on this matchup between the Bills and Browns. Now time to hear from someone with boots on the ground in Cleveland. After the break, Tony Grossi from ESPN Cleveland provides his perspective on the Bills' upcoming opponent, including how hot the seat might be for head coach Kevin Stefanski. Welcome back into Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. Jonathan Acosta here with Vic Carucci. It's time now for our weekly segment where Vic sits down with someone who covers the Bills' opponent this week to get the perspective from the local media. Vic, who were you able to catch up with this week?
Yeah, so Tony Grossi, a longtime friend, longtime beat reporter covering the Browns, knows this team inside and out, worked for the Cleveland Plain Dealer for a lot of years, and now is with the ESPN affiliate WKNR. He sees it for what it is, a team that's in rough shape, which is not a new story, unfortunately for the Browns, unfortunately for the fans of Cleveland. And when you have the struggles a team has like this, a lot of jobs are going to be insecure, and that's where we started with Tony. Tony, a very familiar situation for the Browns at this point of the season, and it leads to those questions of job security. So give me a sense of what is on the line for the Browns, not only for this game, but for the final few.
You know, the Kevin Stefanski era is in its 6th season. The last 2 years, they're 6-25. So things are not going up, they're going down in the Stefanski era. 2-time Coach of the Year, 2-time wild card entry, but that last good year was 2023. With 3 games to go, they got a chance to equal last year's record of 3-14. They got Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati. It's not looking good. It's going to be a difficult decision for the owner, because I don't think the owner wanted to make a change, but he may have to.
As you look at a game like this and know that the opponent, Buffalo, has had these miraculous comebacks, but still find themselves in a position where they could win their division and certainly would be seen as a tough team in the playoffs, no matter how they get in. How how does this matchup equate from that standpoint with the Browns trying to just, as you say, maybe a coach trying to survive, and the first challenge of this last three being the Bills?
Well, the problem with the Browns, aside from the fact that, their two active quarterbacks are rookies, a 5th-round pick starting, Shedeur Sanders, and the 3rd-round pick, Dylan Gabriel, the backup. No team in the league has that situation, right? They've had offensive line problems. They've had wide receiver problems. And now they're suffering the injuries that a 3-11 season takes its toll on. So even their strength, which is their defense, has been hurt by injuries up front and in the back end. And it's just difficult for, at this point, a rookie quarterback to overcome the other problems with the team.
If you're looking at maybe the two best paths for victory, I'll start with the first one for the Browns. And that would be Myles Garrett takes over the game. He is 1 sack away from, of course, the league record for total sacks in a season, and facing a Bills offensive line, Deion Dawkins, some pretty accomplished people there. So how do you see that possibility?
Well, that's always the key to a Browns win at this point of their season. But I would also say that Myles Garrett had 5 sacks of Drake May in a game earlier this year, and the Browns were non-competitive on the scoreboard in that game. He can't do it alone. Yeah. There are other brush fires that get in the way. Special teams is a huge one this year. Their path to victory is a game they beat Miami in about a month ago, where they had 4 takeaways and just hounded their quarterback the whole game.
The clear weakness of Buffalo's team is its run defense. And you saw how much it struggled against the Patriots. It's been struggling all year. And it feels like, again, if the Browns have a path to victory offensively, it would likely be their run game.
Yeah. Well, their rookie running back, Quinshon Judkins, is very good. He's as you know, the stereotypical AFC North back, a power back who still has the ability to break into the 2nd and 3rd level of a defense. The problem there is, again, injuries on the offensive line this time. They've had 9 different offensive line combinations in 13 games. Most bad offenses have that kind of situation. They haven't had any stability there. So they haven't been able to really rely on a running game. But yeah, if things would come together, that would be the offensive pathway.
And of course, if you don't have that running game going, all the more pressure on any quarterback. But we look at Shedeur Sanders, and I see him still as just more curiosity than much else beyond that. Where do things stand with him going into this game?
Well, one thing he's brought is the deep ball to the offense. Even last week when he was intercepted 3 times and sacked 5 times by Chicago, they failed to put a touchdown on the board. But he made a couple throws that should help to loosen up a defense and promote the running game. But he brings that big strike ability that Dylan Gabriel, the other rookie who started 6 games, did not have. And Shedeur has shown improvement in just about every game, but they're tiny steps. And again, there's these other things that happen on this team, primarily special teams, that make it difficult for any quarterback, let alone a rookie quarterback making his 5th start.
Great stuff from Tony Grossi, as always. My biggest takeaway when he referenced their special teams. We focus on a lot of the headline stuff, and special teams sometimes slips through the cracks. Look at the Bills. Look at Ray Davis, and look at what a find that has been with him at running back. Now the one of the best return guys, if not the best in the league. I could see Ray Davis going the distance, and maybe more than once against these guys.
And he's talked about it this week, actually, about how he's looking to sort of break another one of those long kickoff returns. And something clicked. I think it was in that Houston game, right, where he broke one off from there. And since then, I think he's been at an all-pro level. I'm with you, Vic. The special teams is sometimes the difference between the bad teams and the good teams.
Yeah.
The Bills seem to finally have a good special teams all around, from the kicking game, punting game, return game. Could be a key in this game.
Big shout out to Chris Tabor, their first-year special teams coach. Chris and I were together in Cleveland. He coached their special teams, knows a little bit about the Browns.
So we'll see how that special teams gets going against the Browns. And coming up in our final segment, a look around the AFC heading into Week 16, where the Bills fit in the ever-evolving playoff picture with 3 weeks to go. That's next on Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. Welcome back into Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. Week 16 this week in the NFL, meaning, Vic, that we're starting to get more and more of these playoff clinching scenarios, and that includes the Buffalo Bills. Let's take a look at these AFC standings. The Broncos lead the 1-seed race at 12-12. They've clinched a playoff spot. The Pats and Jags also in the race for the 1 seed, along with the Chargers and Bills, actually. And Vic, the Bills can clinch a playoff spot this week if they win and they get a loss or tie out of Houston and Indy.
Yeah, you got to just look at that schedule and how it lays out. I think it lays out reasonably well for them, the Eagles being the bigger of the 3 challenges ahead for them. And then you look at the Patriots, and again, they've got the Ravens, not an easy out for them, but it's those last 2 games, Jets and Dolphins, that is their focus to hold on to the division lead.
Now, the good news for the Bills, they've been able to keep up in the wild card race and stay in striking distance of the AFC East because of the way they've been playing lately. 3 straight wins now, comeback wins in all 3, including that win last week against New England. Josh Allen actually saying this week he feels like the Bills are close to peaking and peaking at the right time. Vic, do you agree with that sentiment, and how valuable is that for this Bills team if they really are sort of rounding into form this time of year?
I agree with it. Now, again, the way it's looked and the difficulty and the need to rally in the second half, rally in the fourth quarter, certainly that doesn't feel like full what you would describe as a peak, but I think there is an overall growth that we are seeing with this team, and an understanding and a definition of their identity, and it is that of resilience, and it is that of scrappiness and all of that stuff. But I think on top of that, they're good. They know they're good. And if you think of the 4 areas, we were just talking about it off camera, but in terms of pass offense, a run offense, and then pass defense, run defense. Out of those 4, the problem is run defense. It's a big one, but it doesn't sink you. I think overall they've got enough qualities to compete with anybody in this league at a high level.
And something that can't be measured, but something that Allen said when I asked him about it, he said he feels like they have been battle tested. They've been through adversity against good teams. They played a Buccaneers team that is in the fight in the NFC South. Right. They lost a game in Houston, but were this close to finding the end zone at the end of the game, and the comeback win against New England, a team that's in the fight for the 1 seed in the AFC.
And Jonathan, where does that matter most? The postseason, right? I mean, this team's obviously they're going to clinch their playoff spot. But the question is, how do you do once you're there? And that's always been the question of this season. And I think that battle-tested comment by Josh speaks to what they believe as a team.
And it wasn't just the comeback, but the fact they did it against the Patriots and on the road, where if the Bills are going to be a wild card team, they're going to have to win on the road in order to get to Santa Clara in the Super Bowl. So that's it for this edition of Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. You can find this episode over on our YouTube page and WGRZ.com. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Christmas, we're off for it next week.